Tim, what did you learn about yourself when you were eating and testing against yourself with your blood sugar monitor?
Well, most breads that I tested, regardless of what they looked like, gave me a big sugar peak, which meant it was unhealthy for me, gave me some inflammation, increased my appetite, etc., etc. Until I started experimenting with sourdough, where the peak got a little bit less, and it only really went down when it was had a high proportion of rye in it, and those really high fibre grains. So I was able to get, you know, a really modest peak, about a third of the size of normal peaks, when I had a rye sourdough, and that's, to me, is about the only bread I can sort of eat regularly, safely. The others I just have as rare treats.
Tim, when you look at that peak in blood sugar and you take that over a lifetime, how important do you think bread really is?
It's hugely important because it's one of our major staples that most people in this country have twice a day, and there's very few other foods that we have so often, and yet we, you know, spend very little on it, don't think about it very much, and don't realise how crucial it is, because it's actually also one of the major sources of fibre for most British people as well. So not only, you know, it can be good and bad, and we treat them all the same, and we tend to buy the cheapest one that's the most convenient to go in the toaster and it's just done. But I think all of us need to learn much more about bread, both from the good, the bad and the ugly, and realise that actually by tweaking our daily bread habits, we can make really big increments into our health long term, because, as you said, most people have these things daily, and you can make big differences. And so I think sorting bread out is a really essential part of optimising our health.
From a political standpoint, looking at the food industry as a whole, you've been very vocal about the way in which you have talked about ultra-processed foods and the way that we make our foods, and when it comes to bread and flour, and you look, for example, at the way that most of the industry uses refined white flour, we're throwing away and actually dismantling the whole grain. All of your studies so far, the talk through Sarah, it's quite clear that whole grain and the intact plant is a serious benefit to health. Would you agree with this?
No, yeah, absolutely. The old way of making bread, where you kept the, you know, the plant, the seeds, everything intact, rather than stripping it off and grinding it up into ever finer particles, and then having to re-add in vitamins and nutrients into it, is where we've gone very wrong. And the sad thing is today that, yeah, you actually pay more to get an intact plant than you do the refined product of it, because of the sheer volumes done. So the ultra processing of bread has given us a really fast, cheap source of energy, but it is depriving us of many of the essential nutrients that we need. And so we need to start going back, realize what the key parts of good bread were, and in a way relearning what for the last 50 years you know, we've been going down the wrong route.
Looking at the impact of reducing fibre across the population, and polyphenols and diversity, you have made it very clear that if we can increase all of these things, including, you know, to the general population, there will be a significant improvement in public health. You would agree that you have been saying that for a long time?
Yeah.
Would you argue that there is a case to protect the public, because you said the word "we" need to look at bread? Would you argue that there is a case for the food industry to be legislated, to reduce the refinement of flour, and to actually, because all ultra processed bread starts with the processing of flour, would you or could you see a point at which we say a certain percentage of bread has to be whole grain, or has to include fibre, because of how powerful it is?
I think that's a bit idealistic. I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. We're so far away from that. At the moment, we should just change labelling on the existing breads to make it clear the difference that there are between them, and the difference between the ultra-processed varieties and the only very lightly processed breads that we're seeing, highlighting things like, you know, the fibre value, highlighting the negative effects of all the additives and artificial ingredients on those extreme cheap breads. That should be the first step, as a bare minimum. But at the moment, most of the breads you can't really tell very easily on the label what you're eating. And I think that, you know, yours is a utopian idea that is could actually, you know, if we had a decent government and who are concerned about our health, yes. But at the moment, people can't tell, you know, a difference in this tenfold difference in fibre contents between them. It's really hard for the public to know what they're eating, and I think that's the first step, is what we should be doing, because if people switch from low fibre to high fibre breads and they cut out a lot of these artificial ingredients, you know, they'll be instantly seeing the benefits. And at the moment, there's a 3 or 4-fold difference in price between them, but with volumes, you know, you can get that right down. So we have to find a way to promote the more expensive, healthier breads and optimize, if you like, the cheap, nasty ones, or, you know, put a health warning on them. So eating this bread all the time is going to give you diabetes and obesity.
Do you think that we're in a catch-22 where most people now, and again, listening to some of your work, you were suggesting that there could be as much, I think it's about 50% of people have got a compromised gut microbiome. Do you think that we're in a catch-22 where when people do eat fibre, it makes them uncomfortable and they're therefore avoiding fibre and exacerbating the situation?
Oh, definitely, yes. If you've been very fibre deprived and someone says, you know, oh, here's some of Vanessa's bread, this will change your life, they're going to be, it will, but they might be overwhelmed by that. Their body cannot cope with that much fibre. So I think what we need to learn is just how you slowly wean someone onto that fibre, which could actually take several months. You know, we've been thinking about, oh, we can just do this in a few days, but no. Speak to gastroenterology colleagues of mine that, you know, they're very conscious of this, and realise that it's a very slow process. And little by little, you just say, I want you to get up to here. You know, you want to have a bread that's got at least, you know, 6 or 7 grams of fibre in it as your first level, not one that's got 1 gram of fibre in it. Let's do this gradually, you know, 1 week at a time.